The Knights of the Round have arrived. Saber OD of GNA Reviews here with a servant spotlight for the Sun Chad himself, Gawain. We'll be examining his stats and skills, as well as going over pointers and how to utilize him effectively, and an overall grade comparing him to how he stacks up to the other 4-star servants. I also have a spotlight for the other story-locked Camelot servants, Lancer, Arturia, and Tristan, so check those out right after this, but for now, on to Gawain's stats. Gawain has a max HP of 11,419, which is below average for a 4-star Saber, but overall slightly above average when compared to the other 4-star servants. His max attack of 10,173 is the second highest among all 4-star Sabers, and very high when compared to all other 4-stars. Gawain's overall stats are exceptional for a 4-star servant, with over 10,000 attack and 11,000 HP. Taking a look at his skills, his first skill is Numeral of the Saint rank EX. It increases his attack for 3 turns by 20% and also increases his buster card effectiveness when there is sunlight on the battlefield for 3 turns between 20 and 30% depending on level. His second skill is Charisma rank E, which increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns between 6 and 12% depending on level. And finally, his last skill is Belt of Basilic rank EX, which increases his Noble Phantasm gauge by 20%, grants him between 5 to 10 crit stars, and applies Guts 1 time for 1 turn, reviving him with between 1,000 and 2,000 HP depending on level. For passives, he has Magic Resistance rank B, which increases his debuff resist by 17.5%, and Riding rank B, which increases his quick card effectiveness by 8%. As for his deck and Noble Phantasm, Gawain has a full-on Buster deck with Quick Arts, Buster, 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 and a Buster Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm is Excalibur Galantine, which deals heavy damage to all enemies between 300 and 500% damage modifier depending on level. It also inflicts Skill Seal for 1 turn on all enemies, and inflicts Burn for 5 turns, dealing between 1,000 to 5,000 damage per turn depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at his cards, we see that his Quick card hits twice, his Arts card hits twice, his Buster hits once, and his extra attack hits 5 times. He has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 1.14% and a star rate of 10%. He has bad star generating due to the low hits and a Buster oriented deck, and slightly below average Noble Phantasm gain for the same reason. Gawain is an absolute offensive brute of a Saber. He plays very similarly to Fergus in that his main objective is to make use of Buster Chains to deal very high damage without suffering from the glass cannon nature of the Berserker class. To that extent, he has many skills that help him accomplish that goal. Numeral of the Saint is his main bread and butter skill. It grants a 20% attack buff for 3 turns, but it also gives a huge 30% buster buff in addition to that if there's sunlight on the field. Because his deck is mostly buster cards, this is a considerably strong buff, and if you can get it off, it'll work as an even stronger version of Mana Burst for 3 whole turns. Given Gawain's already high attack, don't underestimate the massive increase this skill can have on your DPS, and even better, it's only a 5-turn cooldown, meaning you can have it active for the majority of the battle. Gawain also packs another attack buff in Charisma. Unfortunately, it is rank E, the same as Saber Altars, so it's not very strong, but still, a party attack buff is a nice tiny bit of utility to have, and it does synergize with Numeral of the Saint. Finally, Belt of Basilic is an amalgamation of skills, namely NP Charge, Instinct, and Guts. Gawain has no means of collecting the stars he generates, so the Instinct effect isn't going to come into play very often, but the Noble Phantasm Charge is very nice to have for farming purposes since Gawain's Noble Phantasm is AoE, and it helps to compensate for his subpar Noble Phantasm gain. The Guts only lasts 1 turn, so its use is highly limited compared to the other versions of Guts, but it will save you from an enemy Noble Phantasm, so it's worth having, and the skill is only on a 6-turn cooldown, which is good given the amount of buffs that you're getting. You want to max Numeral of the Saint first because it's your main damage skill, then Belt of Basilic for the shorter cooldown, and then finally Charisma because it doesn't scale well from leveling because it's rank E. Gawain's Noble Phantasm is an AoE that inflicts Skill Seal and Burn. Skill Seal is a nice bit of utility, although Noble Phantasm Seal would have been better. Unfortunately, Gawain does not have an interlude for his Noble Phantasm, so without the full effect of his Numeral of the Saint buff, his Noble Phantasm can be very underwhelming. And that segues us into Gawain's major flaw. He needs sunlight to be good. Obviously this was done for lore purposes, but simply put, without that Buster buff from Numeral of the Saint, his damage tanks. On the bright side, there are many stages with sunlight, but not as many as you would think. If Gawain is fighting at night or indoors, his offensive strength takes a massive hit, and he has no utility at all to fall back on since his charisma is so weak. And there are entire events and sections of story that take place at night, for example, Fate Excel and Kara no Kyokai events. So this becomes a big problem for him. Outside of the lack of damage consistency, Gawain also lacks defense. His guts is situational and it conflicts with his Noble Phantasm charge. You'll often find yourself wasting the guts effect for the extra NP. And finally, there is the elephant in the room, that is Fergus. Gawain is almost literally a 4-star version of Fergus, both of them being AoE Buster Sabers. Of course, Gawain has much better stats, but Fergus is also much easier to obtain and to Noble Phantasm 5, in which case he even outdamages a non-sun buffed NP2 Gawain. Gawain doesn't do much to differentiate himself from Fergus, unlike the situation with Tristan and David, where Tristan is a better alternative on a quick or crit team, and other 4-star Buster Sabers like Alter, Rama, Siegfried, and the eventual Suzuka either just outdamage him or perform better in some niche, giving Gawain very little to work with outside of just being a very situational damage-oriented Saber. That's not to say he's bad, however. Gawain can be used to good effect in the proper team. So pair him up with servants that can buff him like Waver, Nero Bride, Nightingale, Hans, Shakespeare, Helena, Caesar, Iskander, and Shuten. You'll also want defensive supports to keep him alive, so Irisveal, Media Lily, Tamamo, Mash, Daon, George, and Leonidas are great options. His Bondcraft Essence, Gringalot, boosts all allies' Buster card effectiveness by 15%. It's not bad, but it's better to maximize your own damage, so you're going to want to go with Limited Zero, True Samadhi Flame, or Heaven's Feel. If you're using him more for farming, then you can go with Kaleidoscope, Halloween Princess, or Golden Sumo, depending on your preference. Overall, at his best, when the sun is out, Gawain is a respectably strong Buster Saber with a short cooldown powerful attack steroid, a decent Noble Phantasm charge skill, and good farming capabilities. However, Gawain lives and dies by numeral of the Saint, and without it his damage falls off to the point where Fergus is often a much better alternative. And even with the attack buff, he does still suffer from low survivability, very little team utility, subpar Noble Phantasm gain and star generating, and stiff competition from the other 4-star Sabers like Saber Alter, who just perform better and more consistently. So overall, Gawain gets a C from me. Unfortunately, he is a bit too one-dimensional, and there are much better alternatives all around. If only he had Drought as a passive ability instead of Riding, he would have been much better. All that said though, I don't think he's horrible. You can definitely make good use of him if you have strong supports. If he's your only 4-star Saber, he will most definitely get the job done most of the time. His biggest problem is just his lack of consistency from the sun buff, his lack of survivability, and the fact that there are just better alternatives, including at the 3-star level. And those are my thoughts on Gawain. Hopefully he will get a Noble Phantasm interlude or a strengthening quest because he's in desperate need of one. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and please do check out the Lancer Arturia and Tristan spotlights, linked both on screen and in the description. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over in our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I will see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.